Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar by Inavate and Shure. My name is Sohail. I will be your moderator for today, just like I have been for all the previous webinars. Before we kick off today's discussions, just a quick reminder of all the house rules. We've got a chat function, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom window. I'm just going to type something up there. Feel free to engage in conversation there, but obviously keep it civil. In addition to this, we've got a question and answer function, which can also be found. Feel free to pop your questions in there whenever you want, whenever you find that there's a topic that's been discussed that's of interest to you and you would like more information. We might not answer it straight away, but there is a designated question and answer time period right at the end of the webinar where we will get to all your queries. With that, we're going to kick off. Today, we're going to be talking about flexibility and scalability in AV. I've got an illustrious panel with me, and I would like them to introduce themselves. Ian, if you could kick us off.
Okay, so good day, everybody. Good morning to some, good afternoon to others. I'm Ian Harris. I'm living in Hong Kong, and I run and operate IHD, Ian Harris Design Limited. We're a global technology consultancy. We design audiovisual, IT, security, ELV systems, and architectural acoustics. We design and then we coordinate with the amazing audiovisual and IT and so on integrators in the region through tendering. Once they're on board, we work together to bring our client a great result and get it handed over and fully operational. So we're 78 people across Asia, and we're very, very busy actually, thankfully. So, okay.
Melvin, if you could introduce yourself to our audience.
I think you're muted, Melvin.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Good day, everyone. So my name is Melvin. I'm the country manager for Vega Technology Indonesia. So we are a system integrator for AV and IT. So we started in 2016 for Vega Indonesia, and globally, Vega Global it's been around for 34 years, and we are in 22 countries. 23 office and in 16 countries. So we are the system integrator for AV and IT solutions. Yeah.
And Jayme, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, H. Hi, guys. My name is Jayme. I work in Shure as part of the market development team for Southeast Asia. So I'm looking after the integrated systems, professional audio, as well as the musician content creators portfolio for sure in Southeast Asia.
And my name is Sohail. I am the editor for Inavate APAC. We're basically a Pro AV magazine, and I will be your moderator for today. Let's jump right into it. Recent events, the COVID-19 pandemic, all the restrictions that have been caused as a result, all the measures that were implemented by governments to combat the disruption that was caused, it's kind of put a lot of things into perspective. And flexibility and scalability of technology systems is something that has become extremely important. Now, I know it was important before, and I know it's important today. I would like our panel to kind of contrast the levels of importance, so to speak. How important was it in the past? Has it increased in importance? Has it decreased in importance? Has it stayed the same? Melvin, if you could kick us off with some of your thoughts.
So I think AV is now very important for the business, and scalability and flexibility is very important. In the past, we are thinking, a customer is thinking how the AV is being installed, and very seldom to think about how we can, expand the system and strengthen the system. But now, since the requirement for the business is very much wider and very much complex, so we need to design, we need to think about how we can, expand and strengthen the system in the in most convenient way, in easy way. That's where we come to IT. So it's very important because nowadays the room system, or probably the AV environment, needs to be used for a mixed use. Let's say if we are talking about divisible room, so we have like a big auditorium that we can divide it into 3 individual rooms. So we think that the system have to be very easy to be divided, and also probably the system have to be able to transmitted to another location. So I think the scalability and flexibility is very important for the design of AV at present right now. Yeah.
And Ian, you mentioned that IHT has been lucky and privileged enough to continue engaging with clients through these difficult times. Is scalability and flexibility a core part of the conversation you're having? What does the business continuity plans for your clients kind of look like, and where does AV fit into it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, of course, in the past, before we were using, IP for transmitting our audiovisual and control, everything was very much extension of HDMI, but shifting backwards, even SDI, RGB-HV, and so on. And in my 40 years doing audiovisual, I've seen a lot of change. But always we've designed for our clients flexible systems and expandable in any way we can. Often that meant just putting enough cable infrastructure actually into our projects. And sometimes if it's on the, say, the hotel side, it means a lot of patching. You've got loads of panels, say around a ballroom or in a meeting room, all coming back to a big patch bay, RGB-HV, composite video in the old days, audio, and so on. And for those clients that were budget limited, you'd be patching, and you could just actually patch particular panels into your system, into your small switcher. But everything was hard work before. We're so lucky now where AV and control over IP is so natural. We need 220 volt. We also use IT facilities and networking now. Of course, it's much, much easier now to create expandable and flexible systems for our clients. Naturally, we've got IT backbone, your network and so on. It's almost infinite in its capacity. It's just your endpoints. You display, the inputs and outputs of the system will have to get upgraded with time, but at least reduce the cost and complexity for the clients. And now you're not running cables, from A to B to C, every imaginable route. It's just the network, and the world is your oyster. It's so great now. We can actually help our clients a lot to save money and stay flexible.
And Jayme, perhaps you could shed some light on the manufacturer's perspective on how you're delivering products that help people like Ian, people like Melvin, integrators, consultants, deliver scalability and flexibility today.
Sorry. Before current times, we have been seeing a rise of global or regional standards actually coming in from different regions and actually put in place in localized corporations. So as a direct result of that increasing ease to scale, as what Ian mentioned. So of course now resources actually being put into AV is not as what it used to be. So basically scaling systems as part of that global standard actually brings across also an expectable and predictable expectation for each install, and potentially also lowering the cost of install per room with the enhanced familiarity in the whole AV chain, and also the ease of actually just adding an endpoint with a fiber connection that actually gives you access to another 256 inputs, for example. So this actually brings a lot of plus points to this ease of scale as well as the flexibility. So that actually kind of increases or achieve that economies of scale that both the AV integrator and the end users actually are trying to achieve. So I believe this is one of the greatest advantage when it comes to scaling. So in light of this, basically what we've launched is also a series of network-based solutions that can actually interoperate with many different technologies and protocols out there to actually kind of fit that whole workflow of trying to make it easy for integrators, designers, consultants alike to actually just fit Shure products into that whole big flexible ecosystem, and it's make it easy to scale because it's such an easy workflow overall. So of course that basically adds on to the whole kind of intelligent products that we put in that makes the whole kind of ecosystem even more flexible for all the end users as well as integrators and designers as well. So that's kind of how we're actually trying to fit well into this growing stance in the AV world. Hopefully that will actually meet and actually meet the expectations of how all the different stakeholders are actually kind of expecting us to fit into this.
Thank you for your input, Jayme and Ian and Melvin. Some really interesting thoughts there, some really interesting threads. I think I'd like to delve into your perspectives a little more. Starting with you, Ian, you mentioned something about in the past, scalability and flexibility was kind of like a function of how much cable infrastructure you could get in there into your project, into your deployment. And that obviously had a very strict limit, and it required investment. Jumping up chassis for your matrix switcher or your DSP is and was an expensive proposition. And we're seeing AV over IP come in now. Do you think it's easier to deliver scalability and flexibility on a budget now? Are you obviously, if I had unlimited money, I'd want all the bandwidth, all the infrastructure in place to do whatever I want, but that's never going to be the case. How do you kind of work with your clients to get that trade-off between staying on course with regards to budgets and expenditure, but still ensuring that, you know, if something like COVID-19 happens again, they've got that scalability and flexibility to go up or down as needed to address any challenges that might pop up?
Yeah, because every company, as well as home, has a network, you know, and therefore there's tremendous availability now of communicating from one point to any other point within an organization, even globally. We've done a lot of work for our corporate clients on bringing in either 1 gig or 10 gig backbone based AV and control over IP systems. But we've seen it tremendously successful, actually. One of our very first challenges is always to work with compliance team in IT. We have to very, very seriously observe the compliance, you know, the restrictions on the IT, and the security is vital. But given that, then we work alongside. And taking Shure as an example, you know, Shure used Dante as their network heavily. And now for just routing voice around microphones, it's so easy on a network, on a Dante network, compared to before. Now, suddenly, all of your microphones are there at your mixing desk, as well as at your digital signal processor on Dante. And, you know, there's many clients need either manual mixing, you know, on a real mixing console, where it's a kind of a live event. And on the other hand, when it's more of a conferencing, you can have auto mixing. Now it's very easy to just switch between your DSP as the auto mixer and your manual mixing console. And yeah, we found Shure tremendously helpful, actually. Not as well as with beamforming, seating mics. It's helped us so much get away from all those holes in tables, all the microphones all around the table, all the gating, everything else. Now things become much more straightforward. I mean, on the other hand, the compliance talk with IT is always long and very, very necessary and hard work, but that's something new. But that's okay. That's part of our job. And step by step, project by project, we get more used to that.
Melvin, as an integrator, it's your job to go on site and deliver all these flexible and scalable AV systems. You've had a history in the industry. You've obviously seen the transition from our traditional AV systems towards more of AV over IP being thrown into the mix as well. How hard is it now compared to in the past for you guys to deploy it? Is it becoming easier to make and create and deploy flexible and scalable systems for your clients?
I think network AV is giving us the integrator what do you call the flexibility of us to upgrade the system, or we can having multiple phase of the installation. So I think by having the network AV, it will be in such a way will be saving cost for the future purpose. So as Ian mentioned earlier, but the challenges now is still with the IT networks that we need to comply with the security and everything. But now the customers already aware of this, and then I believe the acceptance is much better now with the network AV. And network AV is something that is really what we need right now, because let's say with this COVID-19 situations, so there will be new way of doing things. There will be new normal, right? So people it's not necessary no more to work in the office. So they can just bring their laptop and bring one monitor from the office for their office in their home, and make a small office there, and then we can work together through video conferencing platform like Zoom or BlueJeans. So I think this is the thing for present right now and for the future. And from integrator perspective, it will be very much easier for integrators and also customers to have this system, and then to adapt the system, and then to use the system. And this network AV will be a very very easy to implement. In the past, we need to concern about the length of the cable, or the coaxial cables and VGA cables and everything, and the signal will be lost and everything. But with network AV, now we just put our switch, and then we can use Dante or JPEG 2000 to transmit the audio and video throughout the networks. Yeah, I think this is something that we currently see right now. And then from integrator perspective, this is the system that we recommend to our customers. Yeah.
And Jayme, as a manufacturer, what can you do to, number one, provide integrators and consultants the right tools that they can take to their customers, but also to kind of reduce the total cost of ownership, improve the return on investment, which are really key metrics that are being used by end users to measure the worth of AV?
Yeah, that's right. When we mention flexibility in hardware, especially, there's obviously a need to have a certain amount of intelligence in the product that actually fits into any situation. So this basically adds on to the whole cost of production from R&D all the way to software development, as well as manufacturing the product. And not to mention like what Ian mentioned, all the different technology standards that he has to comply to just to achieve interoperability between all existing systems and protocols. So therefore, there's definitely some extra costs, as you rightly mentioned, when we discuss flexibility in hardware. But of course, the upside of this is, of course, that these solutions that the end user is actually implementing or designing, for example, or the SI is actually putting in, is actually future-proof, and it's actually securing the investments to actually meet future challenges as well. So as you can see in this current situation, a lot of shift has been towards touchless technology, so kind of that whole shift with that flexibility on the array microphones, for example, that actually already helped from that time to actually future-proof whatever the challenges that end users are really facing. So basically, for sure, having the right market knowledge and to also anticipate the influence and anticipate and influence this potential shift is actually a key aspect when it comes to our solution and products. So basically, it helps us to future-proof our solutions, and that in turn actually kind of secures the user's investment, which basically translates to cost savings. When you basically look at the overall fluidity of that product and how it value adds to the overall user experience in terms of future-proofing, etc. I think that's kind of how we contribute to this ecosystem and kind of maintaining a right balance between R&D as well as the right solutions that actually does not kind of break the bank for all the stakeholders in this AV world.
When I think of flexibility and scalability, there's a very clear parallel to be drawn with the IT industry. And they're ones that I personally feel and believe do scalability and flexibility really, really, really well. And the way they do it is with standards, with standardizing hardware, and then using software as a differentiator. If I need to expand, and this might be simplifying it a very great degree, but if I want to expand my IT network or infrastructure, I can just pop out and buy something off the shelf and then bring it in. And if I have the relevant IT expertise, I can start installing it myself. Is this a route that's open for AV? Is this a route you want AV to go down? Ian, if you could share some of your thoughts about whether standardizing hardware is the best route to get scalability and flexibility.
Well, it is. I mean, standardizing hardware and software in terms of standards is a thing. I mean, USB is a very simple example. The USB standard, you can go into. Yeah, I had a difficult day on Tuesday with several conference calls immediately before a physical meeting, and I had to sit in a coffee shop for the two calls. I bought a USB headset on the way to the coffee shop and with noise cancelling mic. And of course, without doubt, plugged it in and it works straight away. It was a particular brand, and it doesn't matter what brand. You plug it into the USB port, it's going to work because it's standard based. And then actually my example of Dante earlier is another great example. You get a Dante device or system and it's going to work. You build your network and sure enough, everything works. Naturally, you have to configure it, and that's why we all do our Dante certifications and become certified, so we actually have that knowledge and we're good at it. But yeah, the standards are vital, because then some clients have their particular brands that they'll purchase and other brands they cannot, due to the corporate policies. But at least it's going to be possible. So again, it adds to the flexibility and possibilities. And especially right now when we're needing to convert our familiar physical meetings into much more conference calls, and even our staff and colleagues are working from home a lot. We need to enable our colleagues. It's not good enough for your colleague just trying to use his laptop microphone. We can at least facilitate them with standards-based equipment so they can make legible, intelligible calls. And so essential and helpful.
Jayme, if you could share some of your thoughts about how you guys are pushing standards and getting us to the point of where scalability and flexibility would be easier to deliver.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the cool part about, or the difference between the AV and IT world, it's the AV is kind of ever changing in terms of standard. So video resolutions, the embedded control within the hardware, new workflows, as flexibility is a new norm. So the challenging part, of course, all this is how that actually translates to a Cat5 connector that fits and transport to the other side of the world. So that's where we kind of live in nowadays. So of course, when we kind of look back into the background of how this standardization of AV and IT happens, was kind of back when kind of video over IP, kind of everybody was kind of implementing their own standards and their own portfolios. So to try to actually speak well with their own internal devices, but they are kind of missing the fact that the part of networking is part of that communicating with the outside world. So, I mean, in terms of this, we are actually kind of organizing a lot of research and also trying to actually get a lot of inputs from what the industry and the market wants in terms of this standardization. So, I mean, of course, currently now, as Ian mentioned, Dante is actually one main standard which audio is being transported. So we're kind of sticking to that and try to make it easier so that this Dante gets transported in a more transparent means in terms of a software that we're kind of actually developing to actually integrate easily with Shure devices just by a click of a button that basically optimizes the kind of different connections in terms of the logic commands, in terms of the audio commands, and then this actually gets easily integrated with one another. So in kind of like a box, for example, we are kind of trying to standardize the way users are actually interacting with our products and configuring them. So of course, these products and hardware is actually integrate to a wider third-party systems as well. So in overall, I mean, we are just kind of trying to integrate with everyone in terms of standardizing how the industry is actually heading towards. Yeah, that's kind of how we're actually going about this.
And Melvin, on your end, are more standards going to help you as an integrator? Is it going to help you deliver value for your clients?
I think in the future, if you look at the history, back then all the system is very complicated, very unstandard and everything. But now I think everything is becoming more easy and more simpler, I think. So I think that's how the industry working towards that. The easy standard, people who the standard for everyone, and it's easy to connect. I think the system that market customer is looking for is the system more easy, more simple, so everyone can just connect. As you mentioned earlier, Huraya, if I want to, expand the system, I'll just get on the shelf equipment, and then I plug the system, and then there you go. I will have expandable system, something like that. Which I think that's what our the customer will need in the future. And so I think a lot of manufacturer now is working towards that, creating the common standard for everyone. But the most important things now for AV industry is we need to have this IT knowledge, which we need to emphasize that in AV industry, because we are now we are now part of IT. So we need to be able to, works and works towards the IT standard. So this is very important for the futures, and I think we need to have some kind of a very easy install equipment that is very fast and very flexible. So we can easily to expand or strengthen or modify the system in the future. Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your input. We will now be moving on to our question and answer segment.
Brilliant.
of our
Okay.
conversation. And Ian, there's a really tough question right at the start from Jason Ruzier about whether we should turn the AV industry into plug and play, and whether just going completely down the standards and standardized hardware route is something that is profitable, which is a fair question. Do you feel that, you know, if everything becomes standardized, it devalues what consultants and integrators currently bring and negates their expertise? And let's kick off with that. That's a good one.
Right, yeah. Oh, and Jason, welcome to the call. It's great to, I can't actually physically see you. It's great to know you're here. So Jason's a great guy. Okay, it's a good question. But the plug and play is a problem, because it's one thing, work at home, for example, and you plug and play with your particular conference microphone or your camera and so on. But in the corporate world, you know, out in offices, very first of all, we've got the coordination with compliance, IT, and so on. We have to really conform to the IT security and achieve somehow. It's often not easy at all, but achieve that connection into the corporate network and so on. But then comes the physical rooms. Every room is different, but also every room has a typically interior designer or architect. And to be honest, a lot of our time is spent on projects, negotiating the interior designer. We need beamforming microphones up in the ceiling above the ballroom table, but the ID is saying, no, thou shalt not enter there. It's my space, it has to be beautiful. And you end up with the microphones forced to be far away, double the distance, incorporating the reverberation, reducing the quality. But this is our job. This is our value add, to win the battle and achieve the best for our client. But every project is customized. It still needs a drill and Hilti bolts and physical installation. So the plug and play concept is great for here at home or traveling around. But for fixed installations, we do need to abide by IT, health and safety, and the reality of the construction of the rooms.
Staying on the topic of standards, there's a question for Jayme, which is Dante understood and being asked for by your IT customers?
Well, when we talk about when we're talking to IT customers, usually they would first ask you, why would you need a switch in a room to run your devices? So, that's kind of the first challenge we have to kind of overcome. And then the next challenge is what actually goes through that switch, which when we kind of explain Dante, most of the time they kind of give up halfway. So, most of the time they do not understand and do not kind of fathom the need for this. So, but most of the time it's transparent to the IT guys. So we kind of just make it so that it works. The internal protocols and things like that actually are what is implemented so that it's kind of easing communication as a standard. So traditionally they won't really ask like, oh, do you speak Dante? Can I use Dante? So most of the time they would say, oh yeah, is that VoIP? So it's not exactly asked for, but it's kind of there to actually enable the technology to actually communicate between devices.
Staying somewhat in the same ballpark, we have a question from Mustafa Rampurwala. It's about the commoditization of AV, and he's asking for what your take is about the future of AV once we are even further down this path of converged technology platforms. Ian, if you could start us off.
Okay, that's why we need to, in the both the consultancy and the integrators industry, keep on top of technology all the time and be aware of what's happening, the trends, but also the challenges. We've seen one project where a high-end switch was specified for AV over IP, and finally nobody could actually configure it to work, and they had to buy a much cheaper switch, and they got it to work because people knew how to configure it. and then the client was demanding repayment for the consultant for the difference in price of two switches. These things do go wrong, but yeah, every project tends to be custom, and we need to bring our experience to bear to find the best solution for our clients, and at the best cost as well. There's no one solution fits all typically.
Melvin, what do you think about the commoditization of AV? Is it good for the integrator? Is it bad for the integrator moving forward?
I think the commoditization of AV it's somewhat is normal. I think because all the system will be every system have to be easier in the future. So everyone is looking for easier system, much simple system, and everything. But the requirement, the technology will be expanding. So nowadays, probably we will need to have this requirement. But in the future, will there be another higher requirement, or maybe wider requirement in the future? So that's where I believe what Ian said, that we still need to have things with a precise measurement, like programming, like designing and everything to meet that requirement. So the current technology will be much simpler in the future, but the requirement will be much higher and wider. That's where the integrators and the industry will stay grow, and we will still have a lot of innovation from manufacturers and patents and all. I think that will be good for the industry in the future. So that means yes, probably like the current technology that we have right now have to be more simple in the future, but we will have more exciting and innovative technology in the future that will need to have proper design, proper measurement, and yeah.
Jayme, we've been pulling at this thread of commoditized AV throughout the course and throughout the series of these webinars. Mm-hmm. If you could share some thoughts with us.
Yeah, I think we can't really fight what the trend is. So, I mean, most of the time, if you look at webcasting, for example, professional webcasting, a few years ago, that would have taken tens of thousands of dollars with professional cameras, etc., video switches, good audio devices, embedders, de-embedders, etc. So, and now we can use a software to actually just plug some USB devices in, and that makes a professional webcast for gaming, for example, those are becoming quite the norm. So you are able to get information off the net of how you actually set up a system at home, for example. So I mean, that is kind of the trend that the whole industry is moving towards, trying to kind of make it easier, try to make it easier for the users as well, and to get content out faster, and of course, professional conferencing as well. Does not traditionally now have to go into that whole, complex setup, for example. So having solutions like this, that at a click of a button, you are able to optimize your audio setup, is kind of how we see the kind of industry moving towards. And of course, the integrators and the whole ecosystem value adds to this, like what Ian mentioned as well, and of course what Melvin mentioned, by kind of sticking to that, having to comply with standards, comply with securities. So all in all, it's all part of it, and how we actually support this ease of actually implementing such plug and play technology. I guess that's where the AV and IT will kind of have to sit down, and manufacturers like us have to kind of meet kind of all of these easing standards and products. So that's where kind of how we actually fit into this whole ecosystem of things, in my opinion.
Thank you, Jayme. I'm just running down the list of questions. And one of the hot topics that a lot of people are asking about, which is kind of relevant to our topic as well, scalability and flexibility, is about meeting rooms. So obviously Singapore is going to be going into its second phase of reopening tomorrow. We've had multiple other countries in Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific in general. Some of them are ahead of us, some of them are behind us, but on the whole, people are returning back to the office. But at the same time, we've got social distancing restrictions. We've got to limit the amount of people that can come into the office. And there seems to be a really big scalability and flexibility project, so to speak, for a lot of your clients, I'm sure. They're looking to kind of completely revamp their meeting rooms, their meeting spaces, their floor layouts, their office layouts. I'd like to hear from the panel about what your clients are asking you for. Are they asking you for more huddle rooms? Are they asking you for bigger meetings? Are they asking you to completely redo their floor plan layouts and the technology that empowers them? Melvin, if you could perhaps share your input on what these meeting spaces look like in a post-COVID-19 world, so to speak.
So this is a situation in the world that we never have this before. I think it surprised us to the most, I think, because I never experienced like this. So when the whole world is like shutting down and people is staying home, right? And then we can't even go to work, right? So I think this will change everything. I think after this will change everything. Before the COVID, so we already see that how IT and AV world is like technology already disrupt the market by having this free sitting in the office. So based on the report that I read, it's around cutting around 5 to 10% of the seating in the office corporate world, because we have this hot seat arrangement, right? So I think, and then we see a lot of huddle space, small meeting rooms is built more than the big, boardrooms. In previous years, we see in corporate market built a lot of huge room with very complex system in the room. But nowadays we see a lot of and more small meeting rooms with quite what do you call, quite simple equipment, but versatile equipment as well. And then we see also huddle rooms as easy as just one monitor and then couple management system installed. But I think it will be interesting, Herrera. After this, I think we will see another changes. I think there'll be we see the demand of video conferencing platform is rising amazingly, tremendously. Now people are adapting how we can have a meeting online. And back then some customer they don't like to have video call because they won't see the chemistry. But now we need to live with that. We need to have video call, otherwise we can operate. So we will expecting a lot of changes after this, I think. And then from Vega technology also we have this ideas that we can move the office to our home. So we are thinking to have this kind of what they call a cubicle, small cubicle that is can be carry and is supposed to be very compact, so we can work there and then we can have this video call. So we can put that in our living room or probably in the backyard or something like that, as easy as we connect the power and then we connect to the Wi-Fi. So
Yeah.
This thing that I think it will be very interesting that we will see in the future, and we will see that changes of the new way of doing things, I think, in the future. Yeah.
Ian, on your end, are clients demanding you to come into their office and help them implement measures for social distancing while still having their meeting rooms be functional? What's the conversation like?
Well, yes, but it's more because of the users calling from home. We even had one client wherein a judge was having to call in from home instead of from work, and didn't even know how to use a computer. But the other thing is, a lot of the corporate companies do still use the traditional codecs, but these tend to be very limited, Cisco to Cisco, Polycom to Polycom, and now there's a very great need to cope with, all of them, the Zoom, GoToMeeting, WebEx, Teams, even Skype for Business still, on and on. And as a result, there's actually a very great need now for flexible meeting rooms wherein you can just actually walk in with a laptop somewhere around the office in a room that was just a plain meeting room before, just for sitting and talking. But there's a bad need now to be able to just connect your laptop to either smart soundbar, howsoever, to the camera, ideally beamforming microphone and the loudspeaker system. So, and it's not always that easy. It's not always, if you're in a boardroom, it's not always easy to get USB 3 from a laptop at the table across to the media wall. There's a lot of challenges too. So we're finding this is the reason for a lot of inquiries, actually.
And Jayme, Shure obviously is a big part of many meeting rooms and video conferencing rooms and huddle rooms, or small meeting rooms, or basically these spaces across the world. Can you give us an idea of how Shure products enable these places to be flexible, so that without a lot of effort, you can make it a space for 10 people, make it a space for 4 people, make it a space for 20 people?
Yeah, with our array technology microphones, of course, that can be actually easily changed because it's so flexible. By just a click of a button or recall of a preset, you can make it to a small room, a big room, or combine 2 rooms together easily. That's actually how we've been enabling the bigger room setups. In terms of the smaller rooms, for example, what we recently launched with the whole rise of soft codecs are the kind of mute button technology, the linear array technology, as well as a soft DSP codec that can live together on your PC to actually process audio. So that is kind of how we fit into that smaller room setups, which we've seen a lot of rise of recently, especially during this kind of times. So smaller room setups are actually kind of where we are kind of helping a lot nowadays, making it easier. As well as the mid-sized rooms as well, kind of hardware is actually kind of becoming lesser in some of these rooms because they would like it to be a lot more flexible. And basically a small USB device can actually process audio from multiple channels, combining different rooms, etc., to actually connect back into a soft codec as well. So we do actually play well in all these different scenarios with USB, with soft codecs, even hard codecs as well. With the array technology, wireless technology that can easily kind of combine and separate into different systems as in a click of a button. So that's kind of how we actually enable this kind of moving technology type of world that we live in nowadays.
Thank you, Jayme. The last topic I'd kind of like to bring up and present to our panelists today would be kind of like the flexibility of thought, flexibility of imagination. One of the trends that I've picked up on in my conversations with end users is that a lot of stuff that was considered, solid knowledge is going out of the window. If you look at the corporate sector, right, the trend was towards hot desking and everyone moving around and touch control. These things now have to be reimagined in a world post-COVID-19. People don't want to touch public spaces or surfaces as much. People don't want to hot desk not knowing who's going to be there. And then obviously a lot of people are working from home. Similarly in education, I've been talking to some end users and they're thinking about completely changing the lecture theater. They're saying, if we're not going to have people on campus and we're going to be pushing online streaming much more, why do we need a lecture theater when maybe we should be investing in a broadcast studio? So I'd like to get your thoughts about, how people, how integrators, how AV professionals can be flexible in their thought process to kind of reimagine these AV environments post COVID-19. Melvin, if you could kick us off.
So of course, we were talking earlier. We were talking about how the system will be much more simpler, and how the AV system will be commoditized, right? But also a new technology or a much more complex system have to be designed with a professional like Ian Harris, right, who's been 40 years in the industry. So this system have to be measured, have to be designed properly, right? So I think the change of this situation, I think we will need to have new ideas of how the business works. And as you mentioned, they are going to change the theater into broadcasting room. So these ideas of this new way of doing things, I think will bring us to another very interesting technology or interesting topic and interesting integration in the future, I think. While we are thinking how the current and future technology can, bring us to another feature of how the business works. I think the future, in the near future, we will see a lot of new design, AV design, and new equipment of AV that will bring us to probably like non-touch equipment, and will bring us to next step of video conferencing, and with a new what do you call, new features of video camera or web camera. I think that will be interesting. And if we are talking about future technology, we see AV. This is just my wildest idea. Okay, so we see video, and then we already hear the audio, but up until now we haven't been able to replicate the smell. That will be interesting, in the future. So we are what do you call? We are limiting our meeting with eye-to-eye meeting with people, so we can see them, we can hear them, but we can't smell them, right? So it's going to be probably like a interesting technology in the future, I think. Yeah.
Ian, we obviously have a set amount of tools at our disposal at present, but based on all the new challenges that have cropped up, maybe these tools need to be applied and thought of in a completely new way. What would be your advice to people looking to do that and go down that route?
Yeah, okay. So very first, it's very important to establish the actual clients or users' needs. So to carry out that, the very first needs analysis actually is vital, to really understand both what they're asking for, but also why, and discuss it. Because sometimes the clients, the users, won't actually have thought of implications and consequences. So that very first discussion and questioning is so vital, actually, before we go on to actually do the design. But in the example, say for the lecture theatre, to make it more of a broadcast facility, actually that shouldn't be difficult, but only difficult if it doesn't have any good microphone systems to pick up all of the audience, and any good camera systems likewise, both the audience and the presenters at the front. But having done that, it's relatively easy to do the streaming, or the transmission, but it's going to actually make that a much better lecture theatre in the future as well, for when we're back to normal and we're again used to being together and actually physically in spaces, and the result will be also much better, though, much better communication and clearer presentations.
And Jayme, final thoughts from your end. I know that Shure has launched a couple of new products as well to increase the number of tools that are available to integrators. Maybe you can expand a bit on that, and if possible, share any roadmaps and developments in the pipeline. Will we see a microphone that can transmit smell over IP as well for everyone to get the full experience?
Well, we love to see that happen, actually. Yeah, but I mean, overall, we've launched a series of products to kind of look after the entire input to output chain of the conference rooms. So that includes the microphone, which is the linear array microphone that is a kind of a different mounting style now, with wall mounting possible, which traditionally on the 910 and the 310 was not possible, as well as that software DSP that can live on the same PC as the soft codec to process audio for better lectures, as Ian mentioned. So these are kind of the main input and processing stage. And of course, we do also have the network speakers now that actually helps with the kind of whole ecosystem of tuning the room from the input all the way to output as well from the far end, kind of getting that whole user experience up to a standard where learning is possible and enabling better conversations between us, basically. So that's where we kind of are heading towards in that direction, taking care of that whole input to output stage. And on the kind of the home side of things, anywhere can be our desk now. So in terms of the USB microphones and stuff like the Motives, the MV88s, etc., that has enabled better audio even coming from home. So this is kind of looking after that whole chain of audio all the way from the home style, kind of like where I am now, all the way to big lecture theaters, where we do see a lot of possible retrofitting to include broadcasting facilities for the lecturers where it can be streamed out. And that includes, that needs better audio as well. So on the wireless side of things, we're also making a lot of developments to actually ensure that wireless is actually something that will be easy for any end user to implement and to actually operate. So all in all, basically, we do look after the different stages of how interactions are done over the internet now. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are trying to, encompass everything together, per se. Yeah.
Thank you for your input, Jayme. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time to come and share your thoughts and opinions with us. It's been a very fruitful discussion. To our attendees, thank you once again for joining us.
Okay.
This webinar and the ones before will be available as free to stream downloads. If you guys want to check up on it again, just keep in touch with Innovate's various platforms online to find out when they're live. With that, we conclude our webinar. Gentlemen, thank you once again.